Modders are basically turning Fallout 4 into a full-fledged horror game. As in this video, we're going to be looking at a mod that not only overhauls the Commonwealth overall, adding in all kinds of spooky, scary creatures for you to accidentally encounter, but also now a full-fledged quest line with some seriously interesting custom content. But of course, if you're diving into that horror experience, you may want to have a few extras along the way, so we've got some cool new weapon mods to go along with that. And also in the latter half of this video, I'll be showing you a couple of mods that you're going to download and keep for the long haul. It's a special mods you keep in the background, but just will pay dividends over the next couple of months of your playthroughs. With that said though, let's first take a look at the recently updated Whispering Hills mod for Fallout 4. This mod effectively adding in many of the mechanics of the Silent Hill franchise into Fallout 4. This mod may seem familiar to some of you, and that is because it is almost a year old, coming out in August of 2020. And although you may have tried it in the past, I'm going to say you're probably going to be interested in trying this one yet again, as it has just been getting consistent and large-scale updates, adding in a ton of additional content to the point now where it is effectively transforming Fallout 4 into a full-fledged horror game. So right off the bat, one of the big things that this does add is a new questline, this including a voiced NPC, and it is really just the start of something big, as this is just the chapter 1 of this questline. And this questline is actually pretty cool. It's one of my favorite aspects of Fallout 4 modding, and what it's going to do is take you to some familiar places in Fallout 4, but now with a bit of an added twist, a bit of an extra horror element on top of them. And as you go into these places, eventually you'll actually be going to some totally new and incredibly scary locations that are newly added to the Commonwealth. And of course, as I mentioned before, all of this being in a heavy Silent Hill theme, including several familiar faces from the Silent Hill franchise. But it does integrate nicely into Fallout 4's story, with the questline having that same motivation as Fallout 4's protagonist with finding your son. Although, as you do enter into the Whispering Hills dimension, it does have quite a bit of an interesting and more unique combat and gameplay loop. You'll be facing off against totally new and interesting foes and face new challenges that you haven't previously, with one of the notable aspects just the wide variety of new creatures that you will actually see and encounter during these. But another pretty cool aspect of it is, although it does have a almost hybrid Fallout 4 Silent Hill style, this questline also does have some segments that are more Silent Hill in theme. So you'll be in that situation where you're in a totally new location having to find keys to get to the exit of this location, looking for clues along the way. The entire time it's a very creepy, scary atmosphere with horrifying creatures all around you. But one of the really cool aspects of this mod and where it finds itself now is that's actually not all. That's really only one half of the experience thus far with this custom questline. As if you want to ignore all of that, Fallout 4's Commonwealth also finds itself overrun with new creatures, a dense fog, and even some custom sounds in the background. You can find these new creatures all throughout, several of them actually having specific spawn locations, so you'll find them at notable locations, but also thematically appropriate locations for some of these if you know their backstory and lore from the Silent Hill franchise. These creatures overall are just significantly scarier than what you'll normally find in Fallout 4, and even some of the older creatures from this mod got some visual upgrades with some of the more recent updates to this mod. And of course, you still have the staples like Siren Head that you could just find walking around that does create for a very interesting and perhaps immersive experience in Fallout 4. So overall, this mod is really turning into something special. In a singular download, you have a ton of custom content, giving you new and additional ways to have a just horrifying experience in Fallout 4 overall. But of course, if you're going down this route, you may want a couple of weapons that will fit the bill and just make your experience throughout the Commonwealth a bit more enjoyable, especially when there's a bunch of scary foes for you to shoot. And just recently, we got what is probably one of the best weapon mods to ever drop for Fallout 4, that with SREP REDUX. So this is a pretty interesting one. The Service Rifle expansion project is actually a bit of an older mod now. Effectively, there was the Service Rifle released by Wasteland quite a few years ago now. Then the Service Rifle expansion project added new and additional attachments and features to that base mod, and now we have a Redux version, wherein with a singular download you can get an entire weapon platform featuring a ton in the way of customizability. This is seriously one of the most feature-rich weapon mods out there right now. One of the first big appeals of this one is just the vast amount of customization it brings to the table. It is functionally adding in the Service Rifle playful as a fully fledged platform that you could turn into all kinds of different weapons in a similar style. It features a ridiculous amount of attachments, and more so than the vast majority of other weapon mods, this actually allows you to make it look like just something completely different. Whether it be a more true to form service rifle like you've seen in other Fallout games, or even a Vietnam era weapon, an M4 like you've played with in Call of Duty, there really is a ton of customization options, and there are a couple of particularly notable ones. Is one of the other reasons this is such a fun and satisfying weapon to use is it does feature a functional under barrel grenade launcher. Simply by hotkeying an aid item, you can on the fly and very rapidly switch to that under barrel grenade launcher and start firing off grenades. This is one of the most seamless integrations of this feature in Fallout 4 thus far, and honestly super practical. It fits in pretty well lore-wise considering where this weapon originally comes from, and overall just makes using this one a lot more fun and interesting, and actually great for taking down zombies and the like. Not to mention, throughout all of this, all these different customization options, they will be integrated into the level list, so you'll find a ton of enemies using different service rifles and then a ton of modified versions of the service rifle. Feels right at home in Fallout 4, and again, it's definitely a must download for a lot of people, easily one of my favorite weapon mods ever made. Although if you are taking down scary monsters in the night, I feel like another almost must download is the Red Army PPSH 41 Reborn. I'm sure most of us have played Call of Duty World at War. In Call of Duty World at War, you use the PPSH and its ridiculously high rate of fire to take down zombies, and I feel like just ever since then I've associated this weapon with scary monsters. And this is another cool one, as it has a variety of customization options and they actually look quite distinctive. Several different barrels that you can attach that will give the weapon a vastly different look or feel, whether it be more modern or more of that old school style. And compared to a lot of the existing SMGs in Fallout 4, this is definitely more satisfying to use. It's another really fun one, and again, I just feel like it fits in appropriately with some of the horror mods out there. But okay, you're making Fallout 4 a bunch scarier, you have a couple of weapons you could take with you, you probably want some companions or allies to bring along the way also though. And on that front, we actually have a pretty special release that was recently posted by the Fallout 3 remake mod, that with capital Wasteland robots. As what this is going to do is add in several of the robots to appear in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas as fully fledged and functional companions that do support the robot customization system added in with Fallout 4's DLC. You have the classic Mr. Handy in that original Fallout 3 style, even some of the attachments you could apply to his claws that are in that same style of Fallout 3 weapons, which is pretty special. Of course, visually, all of these are a big upgrade from what you originally had in Fallout 3. We can see the classic Protectron making a return. I feel like you saw these things all over Fallout 3, probably the most abundant robot you encountered, and also did have quite a bit of a distinctive style compared to what you have in later games. And with this mod, you do have several different visual options to apply to this guy, so you can have all of those different variants of this Protectron that you probably saw wandering around Fallout 3's capital Wasteland. And this does feature the return of the head-mounted laser, which was definitely missing from later Fallout games. But what is easily the coolest and most exciting new aspect of this is it also features Securitrons from Fallout New Vegas most notably. This is actually integrated in a cool way in that you'll have to get the schematic to craft Securitrons from the Mechanist's Lair first, so you have to play the robot DLC for Fallout 4, but it does feel like a pretty cool payoff as these guys offer a ton in the way of customizability. You can make it look exactly like its Fallout New Vegas counterparts, but also there's things like an armorless version. You could actually have quite a bit of extra armor atop, or little ammo bags that will be applied on the outer armor. You could equip it with shoulder mounted cannons like it should have from Fallout New Vegas, as well as a bunch of different weaponry on its hands/arms. And although I'm really just showing you throughout all of these robots the kind of base versions, what you can expect from their new customization options, this again is fully implemented in the robot customization workbench. So if you wanted a completely different type of arm, leg, or something else, you can do that using this framework. And of course, the Securitrons have a ton of customization options when it comes to their face, so you could really make them look unique and interesting. And using these guys in combat is a ton of fun, and it'll definitely make weathering some of those new enemies from Whispering Hills a lot more bearable. Although, if robots aren't really your forte or your interest and what you're looking for is overall just smarter companions, we do have another, what's probably going to become a must download pretty soon, and that is Pace or Pack Attack Companion Edition. So you probably heard of Pack Attack. It's one of the best mods for Fallout 4, basically just ever. What it'll do is make it so enemy AI is more intelligent. They'll actually think about how much of a threat you are. Maybe they'll run away, maybe they'll flank you, maybe they'll charge you in a big group. And from that same mod author, we do now have pace, which is going to make your companions in Fallout 4 smarter. It just got released a couple of days ago, and in this first version it only applies to the vanilla companion, so no DLC companions yet, but those are coming. And even though it's just the first version of this mod, it is definitely a big upgrade. There's a bit of a unique AI for Dogmeat versus some of the other companions, and Dogmeat is way more powerful in this one, in the sense that he'll just like kind of run ahead of you and start attacking enemies, almost like how a real dog would act in that situation, and he will go for the throat, take down enemies very quickly and efficiently, and actually be quite a viable companion in combat. He's definitely a little bit more bloodthirsty this time around, but companions overall will definitely behave a bit more intelligently. They won't necessarily attack in the open as much, but rather prioritize getting to cover and attacking. They'll move from cover to cover, and even at points, if an enemy goes behind cover themselves, flank around and attack the enemy from a different angle. This mod will also make it so companions that get injured in combat can self-heal with a stim pack or robot repair kit, and just overall, it's one of those ones that will make your otherwise fairly stupid companions actually a bit more relevant when fighting enemies, and from time to time, they will actually surprise you. Either way, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Right now, again, we just have the first version, but I think over the coming months, it's only going to get better and become more of a must download. You may have noticed throughout this video that my HUD looks a little weird, or even looks kind of different depending on which clip in the video you are watching. That's because I was using a HUD mod, and actually a new HUD mod coming from the FallUI guys, that with FallUI HUD. At this point, they've basically tackled every major aspect of the Fallout 4 visual experience, and it's always been a huge upgrade, including this time. This is an extremely powerful mod, and what it's going to do is give you the ability to basically by hand, if you want to, customize your HUD to an extremely detailed degree. More or less every element that pops up on your HUD you could customize, as far as its size, as far as if it's visible or not in the first place, and even some custom elements. So if you don't like the traditional health bar, you can get different variants of the health bar. You can move things all around as far as where they're placed on your HUD. You can make things very small or transparent. And really the beauty of this is just simply using this in-game menu, you can, with your mouse, snap around all of the HUD pieces to make the Fallout 4 HUD literally look however you want it to. Although, if you're like me, you may not really want to do that. You may be a bit on the lazier side and you just want some cool, interesting, or different looking HUDs. Well, this mod also does ship with several custom presets, but you could also download a ton of different presets that are available right now on Nexus. These offer a range of options, some of them being very loud, big, but also quite custom and distinctive, very different from what you have by default in Fallout 4. Some of these are definitely more on the informative side, actually giving you more information than you would have by default. What I'm more a fan of are the minimalistic approaches, where you have less of the HUD on your screen, or even just making more efficient use of the space that is appearing on your screen and not really having some of those unnecessary extras. And the cool part about this is when you download one of these presets, you can edit it. So if it's kind of close to what you want, but not the full deal, you can just jump into that configurator and make it exactly how you want it to look. I'll have links to a bunch of these presets in the description, but this is definitely a pretty powerful mod. For me, really a must download unless you're just perfectly happy with the existing HUD, in that you could kind of make Fallout 4's HUD almost whatever you want it to be. And then last but not least, a mod that I feel like is actually not getting enough attention, especially with where the modding scene is right now. We do have MW player hit sounds and effects. So there's a ton of sound mods for Fallout 4 right now, whether it be echo and reverb or the sounds that are made when you actually land hits on enemies. There are a ton of great ones like that I've talked about in the past, but this one's actually going to add sounds and some effects for you getting hit by enemies, and I actually really like this implementation. As what it'll do is actually add in bullet sounds when bullets are whizzing past you or around you. It'll make it so there are sound effects and visual effects for when you are shot and hit by bullets, and this is one of those things that's pretty tricky. If you are adding in a flinch mechanic, it could sometimes get to be over the top and obnoxious, but this mod is definitely not that. It's very tame, definitely lighter, and it's one of the only flinch mods I have enjoyed using and actually felt like a nice addition to Fallout 4. And just overall, I think it's a quality improvement that does work with a lot of those other mods out there, in that this is affecting one of the aspects of the game that not many other mods touch, with you actually getting shot, not just you shooting enemies. It's a pretty cool one, and with how many weapon mods are out there right now, I think it's going to be one of those ones a lot of people enjoy using. With that said, hopefully you guys found this video informative. A lot of great content has been coming out for Fallout 4, and hopefully this video provides as a nice little update as to what you should be downloading. With that said, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.